Welcome back to learn intermediate JavaScript on Codecademy. We're in the classes section. This is Inheritance 3. We've abstracted the shared properties and methods of our cat and dog classes into a parent class called Animal. See below. Here we have our class Animal, has this constructor which takes in a name, creates name property, assigns name to it, creates behavior property, assigns 0 to it. We have our getters, get name and get behavior, which will return this dot name and return this dot behavior. It also has this method increment behavior, which will increment behavior by 1. Now that we have these shared properties and methods in the parent animal class, we can extend them to the subclass cat. Here we have class cat extends animal. We have our constructor which takes in a name and uses litter. It then does super name, which allows us to pass in name to our animal constructor, and this dot uses litter, which is assigned uses litter. In the example above, we create a new class named cat that extends the animal class. Let's pay special attention to our new keywords, extends and super. The extends keyword makes the methods of the animal class available inside the cat class. The constructor, called when you create a new cat object, accepts 2 arguments, name and uses litter. The super keyword calls the constructor of the parent class. In this case, super with name passes the name argument of the cat class to the constructor of the animal class. When the animal constructor runs, it sets this .name to name for new cat instances. Uses litter is a new property that is unique to the cat class, so we set it in the cat constructor. Notice, we call the super on the first line of our constructor, then set the uses litter property on the second line. In a constructor, you must always call the super method before you can use the this keyword. If you do not, JavaScript will throw a reference error. To avoid reference errors, it is best practice to call super on the first line of subclass constructors. Below, we create a new cat instance and call its name with the same syntax as we did with the dog class. Here we have const Bryce cat is assigned new cat. We pass in Bryce and false. If we log out Bryce cat name, we're going to output Bryce. In the example above, we create a new instance of the cat class named Bryce cat. We pass it Bryce and false for our name and uses litter arguments. When we call console.log with brycecat.name, our program prints Bryce. In the example above, we abandoned best practices by calling our name property directly. In the next exercise, we'll address this by calling an inherited getter method for our name property. Our instructions say, in this exercise, you will begin to create the nurse class as a child of the hospital employee class. Remember, the nurse class has the following properties and methods. Here we have our nurse, has properties name and remaining vacation days, and that's set to 20 inside constructor. We have certifications. Methods take vacation days and add certification. Under HospitalEmployee, create an empty class named nurse that extends HospitalEmployee. So let's do that now. Run it. We passed. So 2 says, inside the nurse class, create a constructor that accepts 2 arguments. Use the list of properties above to name these arguments. So if we look above, we know that the properties are name, remaining vacation days. This is set inside the constructor. So we have name and certifications that should be passed in, since this one here is set in the constructor, and we won't have to pass anything in there. So let's do that here. Let's run this, and we do pass. 3 says, in the nurse constructor, call the parent's constructor method and pass the appropriate values. Let's do that here. Let's run this. So we did pass, and just to clarify, when we say super with name, we are allowing our hospital employee constructor to be accessed to pass in name, we don't put certifications in there since certifications doesn't exist within HospitalEmployee. So it makes sense that we're accessing this constructor which takes name. 4 says inside of the nurse constructor and under super set certifications, and we could do that here. Run it. We do pass. So 5 says under the nurse class, create a new instance of nurse and save it to a constant variable named nurse Olenek. Pass in the following values for each property. For name, we're passing in Olenek. Certifications will take this array with trauma and pediatrics. Let's do that now. Run it, and we pass. So in this lesson, we are continuing our journey through JavaScript classes and inheritance. And in this lesson, we're learning about 2 main keywords, extends and super. And as it says here, the extends keyword makes the methods of the super class, parent class, available to the child class, while the super keyword calls the constructor of the parent class and passes the arguments of our child class to the constructor of our parent class. Those are the 2 main keywords you should be familiar with when dealing with JavaScript child and parent classes. Make sure to read over this a few times until it really makes sense as to what is happening here. Don't forget to also look into the documentation, as that will prove very helpful as well. Once you get that, I'll see you in the next lesson.